hear me now, John? How's that? How are we doing? Yeah, I've got the microphone away a little bit because it's I'm just shouting quickly. If I pull the microphone up to here, how is this? Are we better? Have we got background crackle, or are we up and running? How's that then? Audio. If I click to my shirt, is that better? Clear but low volume. I can't put my volume up much higher. It is as high as it will go on my software now, and the microphone is clipped to my shirt. Cool. There's no background noise then, I hope. My laptop crashed. I was trying to run an additional webcam, and I don't think it liked doing it without the aid of some sort of capture device. Cool. I'm just correcting the snapping of my blade from last time. I'm sorry for being so late today. I've had a bit of a manic day with printing and rushing around all over the place, so I do apologise. So we're nearly there on this blade. Would you like me to zoom in on the sharpening, or is this angle we've got now okay? I think I'll zoom in a little bit for the next part. I'll go in just a little bit. So this stone here is purely for doing the back edge of the blade. So you can see, get as close as I can. You see you can see this light section at the front. That's now the burr that's on the back of the blade from the grinding, and we've got this very delicate tip. So I'll show you the trick for handling that. But first we have to take the burr off the back of the blade, and that's what this stone is for. So it is literally a case of blade completely flat against the stone and just a side to side motion, keeping the pressure on the blade all the time. And now you can see that burr has mostly been taken off. Oh, I see. Oh, that could be my problem as well. So now we want to put a very tiny bevel on this back edge. So we hold up just a few degrees, and just a few light strokes will be enough. Just very, very, very slight. You can maybe just see it on camera. So now this tip is really very fine, and as soon as I put it into the hard cherry wood, it's almost certainly going to snap. So what we do is, you can already see the scores in the stone. So we take the back edge of the blade, this part, and just hold up maybe 30 degrees and just drag it across the stone. And what we've done now is we've put a very small knockback on the edge of that blade, just knocked the very, very tip of the blade off. You can see. Now, if we're careful, that tip of the blade shouldn't snap. So now we've done all of our grinding, it's now time for the last final few strokes, and that comes on this nice hard stone here. And it's exactly the same as before, but this time the pressure is a lot lighter. And what we're doing here is we're just taking those final microscopic burrs off and just polishing the blade. And the pressure is really nothing, almost nothing compared to the grinding stage. And I can feel now there's no burrs left on the blade. We've got that nice leaning edge on the front, so there should be no snapping of the blade hopefully. And I must apologise, I said that I would be doing the waves today, but I haven't finished the leaves. Printing has taken up a lot more time than I anticipated, but if you guys would like to see, I can do the ripples, or I can just carry on with where I left off. It's up to you. Do let me know. I'll just start where I left off, and if you would like to see something a bit different, just shout in the chat, and I'll change it up. But anyway, how is everyone in the world today? How are we all doing? And I remember I snapped my blade in here last time, in this corner. So I have to be extra careful when popping this corner out that I don't catch that tiny bit of metal, because it would almost certainly pop the tip of my blade again. How's our frames and audio and video doing? Are we running smooth now? I do apologise for being so incompetent with my technology. I'm trying to learn on the job. I guess it's not too professional of me, but I suppose it gives at the very least it gives a human edge to the proceedings. Cool, that's great. I've got a little clip-on microphone now that hopefully should correct those issues. So I have to try and not drag it out of the computer if I move and I stand up later. So what I'm probably going to do, I'm going to clear off around these little bits here, and then I'll clear these little sections out, and then we can yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'll clear these little sections out, and then we can see at what point we got to last time around. So you saw me lifting my blade up and out the wood there. That section of wood was particularly hard. I could feel a lot of resistance. So I like to just lift the blade up and move it back in, rather than trying to force it through the wood and risk snapping the blade or slipping with the knife. I'd much rather start that point off again. Mike's better, that's great. We shall continue with our setup for now, once I'm able to get a good capture card and learn how to use it and stuff, I've got another webcam set up so you can sort of see across me, see me, see myself carving. I think that was what crashed the computer when I first booted up. Stream went live and everything suddenly dropped out, and I thought the laptop was done for. So if anyone would like me to field any particular questions about carving or printing or any particular methods, shout them out in chat, and I'll peek up as I'm going along. What I'm doing now doesn't require any particular explanation. It's just same as last time, just popping the little corners out, making sure I'm getting that very slight undercut into the right in the corner down here. Actually, I have got a shortlist for the next print in the Patreon series. I'm going to run maybe 2 or 3 by you. There's one that I'm definitely very excited about that hopefully you guys will too. It's sort of my evolving sort of goal with this series is to try and tell a story of the progression of the production of Japanese woodblock prints. But the types of prints I'm really interested in is animal and still life and more landscape scenery. So if that's something you guys are interested in, then I have a really large selection of prints that have sort of been on my hit list for a few years that I think would be really exciting to put together. It would make a nice little series of combinations of bird and animal and still life and some adapted landscape imagery. Sort of makes a bit of a change from the geisha and the warrior and the kabuki actor and things like that, which are fantastic pieces of work in their own right. It's just not necessarily something that really is not something that I'm trying to pursue just yet. I really like the brushstrokes you see in landscape and nature-based imagery. There's a bit more playfulness and they're a bit more lively, I find. Even the still life sort of images of flower arrangements and stuff. But I'll be posting that in my on the Patreon feed and most likely on Instagram as well, because I want to show off the designs. Hopefully get a few more people joining in and becoming a part of this. But do let me know. And also, if any of you guys have any particular prints that you would potentially like to see done or adapted, do send them to me. There is sort of a cap and a limit to what I can do with the Patreon designs. They amount to around $30 each, so I can't really be doing 8-block full colour like Great Waves and things like that, and there is a certain cap to the size that I can do. This isn't necessarily the smallest, but this isn't necessarily the biggest, sorry, but it's fairly close to what I would consider the largest image that I can do. But by all means, send me any prints or things that you're interested in, even if it's just a matter of I like this, it's interesting. I'm always ready to talk about prints and stuff with people. So. Right, so I'm going to move in with the small chisel. It's on my printing bench. 2 seconds, excuse me please. Are we all still there? Chat quiet, or are you just, is everyone just listening to me ramble? I suppose I better check, is the mic still good? I've just put it back on, so hopefully I haven't put it back on in an awful position and you can't hear me again. So this really thin, tiny chisel I'm using here is just it's more of a case of just sort of picking. Obviously being very careful that you don't pick in too deep and flick up a line that you've just carved. But it's really great for getting into those smaller areas that the larger chisels can't do. I think going downhill. Generally, when you're paring out the wood on a Japanese print, the grain is generally forgiving in 2 directions. You'll either be able to go that way, and when you come back the opposite way, it's likely to tear, and then similar for the grain direction. So if you're paring away that way, it could be good, and then if you were to come back the other way, it's quite likely that it would want to tear. And it's the same for the cross grain. So it's a case of sort of being careful and each bit you do, because it can change for each part of the wood, so each part of the block. So it's a case of sort of just testing it. See, already you can see that it's much easier for me to push the chisel through the wood this way. It's cooperating a lot more. It's not wanting to split under or pull anything away with it. And this is where you can see that it's really important that I got these small triangle sections out whilst I was carving with the knife. If I hadn't have done that and I just carved straight along those edges, I'd be left with tiny little triangle shapes that would be visible in the printing. So as I was saying before, being economical with the cuts you're making, not economical, productive with your cutting and efficient, that's the word, being efficient with your cutting, then you can save yourself quite a bit of work at this stage. And as I said before, it's not something that was necessarily done traditionally. This is more just you do the whole block in one go, but it's quite nice to see where you're up to, and it's much more interesting to sort of show you progression rather than just loads of weird little lumps that haven't really got any taste, or they don't show any progression of the work. It also helps me keep up where I am. I'm terribly forgetful, and if I weren't to clear these out, most likely I would just forget them, and then come to printing or come to test printing, I'd realise I've left in loads of areas, and I'd have to follow back through the block. So now I've gone downhill, and I can't get in on these little sections. It's a bit too much of an angle, but because it's such a small area, it actually comes out nice and easily. Just that little top section there. And if any of you guys have ever done any woodworking, it's really similar to pairing off with a larger wood chisel, just on a really small scale. So now these three here, I've got to come with the grain. And this can be a lot easier, it can be harder, because if the grain doesn't want to cooperate, it can tear and split a lot easier this way than doing a small section going cross grain. Obviously you don't want to be pairing big large sections across the grain, it's a lot more work, but fortunately this piece of wood's quite hard and it's very dry. It's been sat in my studio for 3 or 4 years now, so it's nice and weathered, and it's swelled up and contracted with the seasons and the moisture in the air, so it's quite happy to be carved. So we can see all these new sections, you get nice white wood coming through, and then as we sort of stain it up with the grease on our hands, it gets a little bit darker. So let's get back into the leaves. And some news on the block front. So a friend of mine, Laura Boswell, has been setting up, ready to test, some laminated blocks, not cherry, but magnolia wood. Her and her husband Ben have laminated some magnolia, I think it's 6 or 8 millimeter magnolia onto ply, and Laura is currently, or I think very soon, going to be carving and printing that. And why that's important for me is I'm looking to make blocks. And I understand that cherry blocks, for someone who is maybe just giving this a go, or maybe is a bit apprehensive about the price or things like that with cherry, because cherry is expensive, and the blocks themselves are expensive. They take a lot of work to produce, and the material cost is quite high. So magnolia is actually a really good sort of intermediate, somewhere between the Sheena ply and the cherry. And if Laura's tests go well and the laminations stay good and they produce nice blocks, then I am seriously considering looking to produce some. So if any of you guys want to give this a go, want to sort of get a bit more of an idea of what it's like to carve and print on a cherry block, maybe you've had a go with Sheena ply, and you want to sort of progress into the realms of cherry but don't want to spend the money, or you're a bit unsure about the hardness and things like that, then these magnolia blocks, in Japanese I think they're known as ho or something like that. They can sometimes be advertised as poplar, but they're definitely not poplar. Poplar is gets quite ragged and fluffy when it gets wet. But if that's something you guys I've had people expressing an interest in purchasing blocks, but if you guys would like to sort of try them out, see what it's all about, let me know. If I get enough interest, then I'll make up a few and I'll test them. If the tests come out well, then we can put them into full production. And these lines on the interior of these leaves here, some of them are really fat, and they obviously got quite full of pigment when the printer was making the print. So I'm not necessarily following the lines exactly. I'm more just looking for a feel and a sort of taste. Like here, I've allowed this one to be quite short, and it sort of tapers off on a comes down on a curve here, rather than following exactly like this one here, where you've got this nasty blot here and here and up in here. I'll more or less just sort of make them up as I see fit, and look to carve nice, tasteful, smooth lines, rather than exactly following what was already there. You can see in this area I've drawn a rough section in with pen where it was unintelligible from the original. And that's fine. Doing that, we don't need to make an exact reproduction. The guy that originally carved this, he might have just been given the Henchte, the drawing that he pasted down. He could have just had, it's quite likely that the guy just drew the actual outside shapes of the leaves, and he didn't even draw the lines of the striations of the leaves in. It was most likely just made up by the carver as he went along. And these lines will most definitely need touching up as I go through. No, definitely not. Definitely not. It's very much the marketing of that. People selling the magnolia as poplar or anything like that is very much not correct on their part. It's. I think there must be a translation mistake somewhere that creates that confusion. But it's most definitely the stuff that I'm talking about here is most definitely not poplar. It's magnolia. Southern magnolia, it's called. Block sizes of that will be roughly the same as what I work with. In my own prints, we have a 205mm by, I think it's 185 to 190, and then we have a 250 by 200 or 200 or 190. So for now, the poplar, the poplar, I've just done the exact thing. I was just bad mouthing. The magnolia blocks will most likely be in that range. It's just a case of what we can get. Length's not an issue, but the width is what can be an issue. Oh, I apologise for moving out of shot. It is, I don't know about you guys, but it is absolutely boiling in this studio tonight. I have the window closed. I didn't want any background noise. Come on. I didn't want any background noise coming in, and I'm paying the price for that now. seeing as next stream will be Monday, I should have a good chance to get these leaves and things out of the way, and we can move into something a bit different next week. I'll get all this area cleared out a little bit as well. See a little bit of progression, and then we'll move into these waves and the feathers and stuff in the birds. Metric. What's that in inches? 2 seconds. So we have a block. Where's my ruler? So that would be, we have 8 by 10, and so 8 on the width, 10 on the length, and 6.5 by 8. Excuse me. I should probably make a note to mention the lengths at those sizes. I'm not sure what shipping to UK to the US is like, but I've been using UPS and that's gone quite good. It's expensive, but I'd rather pay more and the products get there on time than trust EMS shipping. Yeah. So that's probably going to be the most common block size that I make. That's the size of this block, and it really is really quite manageable. You can get a good size print on it. You don't have to go too small, and a big plus of that is also the price is going to be really quite reasonable. Is that the size of this block? No, it's not. What was this? 6 by 8 or something. 8 by 10. But we'll see. I need to test the blocks and make sure they carve well and make good prints, and see if the demand's there. one thing that I feel that I can offer. Yeah, yeah, I know. I know hand printed and stuff have been struggling. I mean, if I'm selling blocks and they're for the purpose of carving, I would really just be more inclined to use UPS, and depending on the price that people are paying for blocks. I mean, if it's only one block, then I'm not sure that it's maybe not as worthwhile. But if someone's willing to purchase 4 or 5 blocks, then I I have no issue with that, because it's if someone's offering me that much work and the monetary value of that, I really wouldn't mind sending that via UPS or something. It's especially in the case of the magnolia blocks, it's more about sort of spreading the word and getting people trying stuff and doing things. But yeah, it really has been. I've all but given up on trying to import anything from Japan. My stuff usually gets held up in customs for at least 3 weeks to 3 or 4 weeks anyway, when we haven't got the added the addition of the pandemic. But we'll see. We'll see. People might not even want to buy them at this rate. Yeah, we could do. That's how we do the prints anyway. It's just a case of how much Jed and his assistant really can handle. I mean, understandably their priority is getting the stuff from Dave, because that's really the whole business is that those prints that those guys make. So I'm sure Jed would do it if there was enough of a demand and me and him could strike some sort of deal in terms of him stocking the stuff and shipping it and things like that. We could do that, but that's probably a little bit more long term. I don't mind eating some of the cost for the time being if that small demand's there. 3 months. Wow. Yeah, I've had stuff. Granted, it was only a small package, but I got some stuff from Dave, and it took maybe a month, and that was just one roll of this Gampi tissue, and that took about a month. And there was no customs for that, so I dread to think what anything would be like coming through customs from there at this point. Oh wow, origami stuff. Send me an email. I know a couple of people at Awagami that handle sort of admin and things like that. So I can maybe inquire about that for you if you have if you had like an order reference or something like that. There is some, if that fails, if all else fails, there are some stockists of Awagami paper in the UK. The question is then whether that ships to US, and then on top of that how much you're willing to pay for the luxury. But send me an email anyway, George, and I'll see if there's I'll send an email across and see if there's anything that I can do. Hi Ben. So this line here, I'm gonna put the first cut in, but I'm not gonna pull the second cut back, because I want to work on this area in here, and I don't want to risk pulling the paper getting pulled up. It can sometimes lift up on really small areas. Oh, I see. Yeah, send me an email and if you don't mind, your order reference and things, and I'll email the people over there and see if there's any news on that. It could, I don't know if it was shipped or not, or what have you, but I can inquire for you. No problem. I'm so excited to get this this print out to you guys. Question. So when I send these prints out, my plan is to send them out with a small section of yeah, Ben. So the roll, so the single sheets. So as far as I know, so I'm gonna keep it on focus. As far as I know, the roll is probably a machine made. A large majority of Awagami's paper is machine made. Kitakata is an old paper type. It's quite a historic paper type. So the single sheets most likely are made in the trough, you know, where they shake it by hand and peel it off and put it on the big hot plates. The roll that you bought is quite possibly machine made, and if that is the case, it could have some, possibly maybe 40% pulp content. So you have the actual fibre, the mulberry fibre, or what have you, bamboo or something like that, and they will add pulp, essentially. When you get a piece of paper wet and it sort of goes fluffy and bits come off, so essentially that, and it's no big issue to the paper. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't use paper with pulp in, because for the what I'm trying to do, I like to use a really traditional process as much as possible. But if you're using the rolls thinner, smoother, without a nice texture, screen off the back. Thank you very much, George. Thank you really for stopping by. I do apologise about the technical issues. We will sort of whack-a-mole them and get rid of them as we go. But thank you again, and thank you for the support, George. And I'll see what I can do about that paper. Ben, yeah, the roll's probably thinner. Yeah, if it's machine made, it's gonna have less. It's going to have less. What do you say? Not defects, but less. Hold on. If I get a sheet of my own paper, and I'll show you a pulp and non-pulp mix quickly. So this is a pulp type paper, a Hosho, and if I turn this light off, we just have the white light, you can see, if I was to zoom in, it's got a very uniform texture, both on the front and on the back. It's almost indistinguishable. If you really touch it, you can feel a texture difference, but this is because it's been made in a machine, so there's a lot less of that human sort of touch to it, which makes it smoother. But also what happens is, if you are to wet that paper, you can pull those fibres out, and you can do that on most types, but even more so on a pulp percentage paper. So it really is a case of, when you're printing, you have to really manage the water in the paper that you've got. Whereas this, you can see it's, if I to zoom in, you can see that front side is very smooth and very uniform, and this back side really does have quite a lot of texture on, and that's because this front side has been pressed up against the large metal steaming plate, and you can see it sometimes on the deckled edges. It could be like pinched and sort of warped away, and there's sometimes even fingerprints in where they catch hold of it by the tips. by the edges and put it up against the hot plate. But this paper, so a pulp type paper, really anyone can make really great prints on them. It's just a case of really managing the water that is in the paper, and if you're sizing, or if it's already come ready sized, really try to make sure as much as possible that you're printing on the front and not the back, because when paper is sized, it's sized more on the front than the back side. Probably a third more on the front than the back, and that is so that the front doesn't tear away while you're printing. So if you're printing accidentally on the back side, you'll rub, you won't necessarily notice any pilling or anything on the back, but if you were to lift it off, there's a chance that you'll get pull away like this. This is why we don't use this paper, because the particular print that we bought it for required a lot of large areas, and it just wasn't suitable to that type of print. But I use this paper for test printing and it works fine. I left a ton of it with Dave, and I'm pretty sure his guys use this or something similar, and I think this might be an origami type, I'm not sure. But yeah, just really make sure that there is a very slight difference. This is the back side. You can see it's very small indentations in it, and it's just very, very slightly rougher. Whereas this side, you can see the striations of the fibres are a little bit more uniform, and there's less of those indentations. And if you're to sort of rub your finger, the length of the grain, you can feel it a lot more. But if you're unsure, just send me an email or a DM on Instagram. Attach any photo, and I'll do my best to help out. I am doing, if you're looking to size the paper, maybe in a few weeks, maybe a month or so, I will be doing a stream all around sizing, and I can try and field questions about it as I'm doing that. There is a sizing stream with oil ink anyway. So if you're printing with oil, are you printing with oil-based ink on Woodblock or lino? I really don't have a lot of expertise in that area, but Laura Boswell is someone that does, and she may be able to help a little bit there. She experiments quite a lot with different inks and papers and things like that, so she might be able to help a bit there, but I don't perceive that you would have too much issue with that. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up for this evening. I'll be back on Monday evening. Like I said, I'll make sure I've got these leaves all finished, and we'll move into. I'll let the chat decide. We'll either move into the birds feathers, or we'll continue round this way here and get this section of ripples in. Sheen apply. Okay, cool. The only thing I know about oil-based inks is use extender. Extender is your best friend. I think that makes it less tacky, less sticky as well. But Laura has a ton of videos that show how to use oil-based inks and things, and obviously Tom Killian just Tom Killian's work is all, the majority of it is done on Sheena ply with oil-based inks and things. So yeah. Thank you very much, John. You stay safe as well. We've got the audio sorted, so we've knocked one on the head. We've just got to figure out the rest now. But anyway, guys, I've got to go. I'm gonna have a coffee and finish up my day. But thank you very much for your support and for all of you to continue tuning in. Yeah, I'll catch you all Monday. Stay safe, guys. Stay safe and take care.